What is going on, everybody? It is Treeb from Treeb Talks here, and we are back again to rank all of the sets from Kill Tony number 681. And on this episode of Kill Tony, the panelists were Sam J. and Greg Fitzsimmons. Now, before we dive into the sets, and there were a lot of sets in this episode, 15 of them to be ranked. There was no William Montgomery, no Hans Kim in this episode, so there were a lot of different acts to rank from this episode. A lot of old but new faces, a lot of older faces coming back to the Kill Tony universe for this episode. But let's talk about the panelists for this episode, starting off with Sam J., who a lot of people in the comments section were saying she was a terrible guest and that she was insufferable. To be honest with you, I thought she was fine. When they did the black spelling bee, that was one that, she kind of got a little bit like, hey, I want to leave. And I think she was joking at that point. And, there were a couple of times that she had a couple of head turners towards Tony Hinchcliffe. But I think she realized that it was all in good fun at the end of the day. This is a comedy podcast. She is a comedian. So I think she kind of got it. And I think some of the comments towards her were a little bit of an overreaction. I thought she was fine. And then Greg Fitzsimmons, hilarious guy. He's been on the show a billion times at this point, I feel like. Obviously one of the older, more seasoned vets in the Kill Tony universe, so he's always going to bring his A game. And I thought those two were very, very solid guests. Brought different styles of comedy to the show, and both of them brought something good to the panel and brought something fun. And what would have otherwise been a kind of lackluster episode, because, if you don't have a good panel, you don't have good guests on the show. An episode like this, where there is a lot of poor, not only bucket pulls, but poor performances from the people that Tony decided to bring onto the show, it could have suffered. Right? Going from, there were 15 acts on this show, going from 15 to probably 6. They are not that great of sets, and not that great, not only not that great of sets, but not that great interviews, and, left a lot to be desired. I think the top 5 was very, very solid, but outside of that, not that great. But there were some good interview moments, some good roast moments from Tony, from Sam, from Greg. That really tied this whole thing together and made it another good episode of Kill Tony. And like Tony would say, they've done it again. They've got my attention. They've, gathered my interest for yet another week. So let's dive into it and rank all of these sets from worst to best. And coming in at number 15, I think is no surprise, I have Alicia.
It wasn't. Start with your name.
I'm Alicia. Hello.
Make some noise for Alicia, everybody. And the clock starts now. 60 seconds.
We don't have to spend a whole lot of time talking about Alicia's set, because they didn't really give her a whole lot of time to talk on the episode. It kind of seemed like it was a filler set as they were trying to get Pauly Shore onto the stage. And, she bombed. She did really, really bad. She just basically ranted on about a story that felt like had no ending. Obviously, the West Hollywood Bear had to come out. She talked about dancing her way into a hate crime with a person with cerebral palsy. And Tony Hinchcliffe basically just rushed her off the stage. I don't even think she got a little joke book. Was very, very bad. Not good stuff from Alicia, and I believe she will have nightmares about that stand-up comedy set. But to be fair to her, they always like to get a woman on, and Tony said, does anybody Is there a woman that signed up? And she raised her hand, so it was kind of a impromptu. She didn't necessarily get pulled out of the bucket. So, maybe a little bit of a stressful situation there, but if she didn't want to come onto the stage, she didn't have to raise her hand. So she put herself in that situation, so not a whole lot of sympathy for me, and she comes in at number 15. Coming in at number 14, I have Angel Maguez.
To look up a lot of conspiracy theories because I'm an open micer. I've been looking up at what happened to the weather in Texas. Why is it so hot, right? And it turns out that the Jews are owed some money. I don't really understand why, or what it is that the debt is due to, but we need to make sure that we pay that, and I got $5 that I could contribute. But until then, we gotta make some kind of list and see what we got going on.
And again, just another set that was very, very bad. He talked about how he looked up conspiracies when he came to Austin. He just recently moved there, in fact, for Tony Hinchcliffe, because he wanted to work for Tony Hinchcliffe. And Tony, again, I don't know if it's the Madison Square Garden high or what it is, but he's being nice to these people that in other, years past or episodes prior, I feel like he would just dunk on these guys and be like, why the fuck do I need you? What can you do for me? But he actually gave him like a chance. Like, Angel's like, oh, I could just run and get you coffee. And Tony's like, I do need somebody to go and get me coffee. But, they turned it down pretty quick. And, he did a set basically about the conspiracy theory about why Austin was so hot. And basically it's because they owe the Jews money. And, not a whole lot of comedy there, not a whole lot of things to take away from that set from Angel Maguez. And, I don't even really hope that we see him again, because that was not that great. Coming in at number 13, I have Goliath.
Calls my dick David. Still haven't figured out if that's a compliment or an insult. But the reason she said she named him that was because as soon as I get my rocks off, I pass the fuck out.
His set revolved around him saying his girlfriend calls his dick David, which is like, if your name's Goliath, you're going to come into a David joke. That's just kind of a given. He did do that. Again, wasn't a very funny set. Talked about how his first word was obviously fuck because of both of his parents' occupations. And, again, wasn't that funny. And the set only lasted 40 seconds. And he also said the typical Kill Tony line of people that just come out and bomb. And he said he did not expect to get pulled. Which is, again, just Tony. Tony must just be in a good mood lately because he didn't roast him for saying that. He just said, oh, why would you expect to get pulled, blah, blah, blah. It was a fine back and forth there. It was a pretty solid interview. It was cool to kind of get into his background and he basically just said, that he's in the music industry and has been since he was 15 years old. And, he's driving tour buses and talked about how Kill Tony's kind of helped him stay up for long drives while he was driving those tour buses. And, it was cool kind of getting to know that side of the music industry and get to know him. But, that interview wasn't enough for me to bump him up any higher. So I got him here at number 13. Coming in at number 12 for me, I have Drew Nickens.
I'm blacker than Kamala Harris!
Yeah, I'm done. I'm done with Drew Nickens, man. Tony came out after Goliath, and Tony said, well, I'm going to call that 40-second set a bomb. And who comes out after bombs? Drew Nickens, a long way to the return of Drew Nickens. And, I think if he's going to do anything with Drew Nickens, he should take away that whole gimmick of him coming out after bombs, or just take away the fact that that's what he does and just have him come out and do stand-up, because if that's what his whole shtick's going to be, he can't bomb either. He hasn't had a good set since his first ever time on the show. And yeah, this was not very good. He had a really nice intro to his set. You know, he said, "I'm blacker than Kamala Harris." And, you know, I was like, oh, this is funny. That's hilarious. You know, where are you going to go with this? And then he started talking about the Wiggles, which is like the whitest thing you could ever talk about, ever. You know, so it's like, why'd you say that? You know, it definitely got the crowd on his side, because it was like, oh, okay, that's funny, because he is. And they talked about that in the interview portion. But it's like, you know, if you're gonna say that, and that's gonna be how you're gonna use it, how you're gonna be able to get the crowd on your side, you know, maybe try to form a joke off of it, or, you know, try to get me to laugh off of that. But didn't do that. Instead, he did a whole minute set about the Wiggles having an 18 and up concert, and how he's excited to show up to that concert and see his favorite music group without showing up on a registry. And yeah, just more and more mediocre stuff. If Drew Nickens never appeared on another Kill Tony, I would not be upset about it. And I think a lot of people also would feel the exact same way. He has given us nothing but mediocre stuff. And he has such a good intro song. Like, the band, he's like, "This is the Drew. Like, he has such a good intro. That it sucks that he's so bad at comedy, because it's like, with such a good intro, you know, you would wish that he would be better for the show, but he is not, and he comes in at number 12 for me. In at number 11, I have Jake Hayes.
Anytime I'm upset, I need to use I statements. I don't think that was the best advice, because now anytime in an argument, I'm just like, I've been losing arguments. You got to stick to you statements, people. Like, "You stupid bitch." They say abs are made in the kitchen. I don't really think that's true. None of the women I know have six packs.
His I and you statements joke, I think, was pretty funny. Talking about how he has to go to therapy, and his therapist is telling him that he needs to use I statements, and he feels like he needs to use more you statements, like "you are a bitch." You know, I thought that was pretty funny. And, you know, when he's the I statements, he was using his eyes, which I thought was fine. And it might have just been because of the lackluster comedy that was on this show, that I thought, you know, that it got a chuckle out of me. But I thought it was pretty fine. His interview was absolutely dog shit. It was not a good interview. He was very boring, you know. But what made it funny was the panelist, you know, basically grilling him the whole time, and this guy just having like no reaction to it. You know, Tony first mentioning the fact that his beard was a different color than his hair, and he's like, "Well, I guess this is just me noticing it for the first time." And then it was just, that was super funny. And then the whole, you know, premise, the whole joke that everybody was laughing at was everybody was calling him a centaur, and he's like, "I don't get it. Why am I a centaur?" When he does look like a centaur, and that was very, very funny. And I think that's why, out of this kind of, you know, core of really bad stand-up sets that we have here, that's why I think I kind of put him above the rest of the people that we've talked about. And it wasn't even really him. It was because of the panelists kind of roasting him for something like that, and it was very, very funny, at least in my opinion. Coming in at number 10, and we are in the top 10 of this episode, and you know, this top 10 is not very good, and we're starting off at number 10 with Mitchell MacArthur.
Went to a school the other day and I pulled the fire alarm. I'm genuinely surprised with how organized those blind kids were. They made out no problem. A little bit mean, but I am actually glad that I pulled the fire alarm, because if I didn't, they wouldn't have seen the fire I started.
And his stand-up set was not good. You know, and I've already said that a plethora of times in this video. He spent his set hating on blind people, and, you know, he admitted that he was a big Kill Tony fan, and that his set was basically inspired by D Madness. And after he was done with his set, D Madness comes walking through the curtain, pops the crowd, and it was almost like it was planned. Very good timing there, which made it more funny and, kind of gave me more reason to bump it up to the top 10 with all these mediocre and bad sets that were on this episode. The interview portion of this set was the best part. He admits that he was, fucked up, the whole, that he was, fucked up for this set, which, and we'll get into it later, but a lot of people in this episode were pretty fucked up. And at least he had the balls to come out and admit it. But the best part was that he comes out and says that he's 5'7". The panel calls him out on his bluff, and they measure him, and he is 5'5". They also weigh him because they don't think that he's telling the truth about his weight either. But it turns out that he is 130 pounds. It's telling the truth about that. So that part not as funny, but it's always funny when they pull out the tape measure and the scale on Kill Tony. So for me, with these mediocre sets, bumps him up to the top 10. Coming in at number 9 for me, I have Pauly Shore.
Over for Laser, now it's the Wheeze fucking time, bro. What the fuck do you think, bro? Yes. Thank you guys for coming. Give it up for Kill Tony and the fucking Shazam crew.
Did a bit about black girls choosing him on Bumble. And, I think his premise and his jokes were fine. I thought that they were, pretty funny. But him laughing through his jokes just threw it off for me. There's a lot of comedians that if they laugh through their jokes or they laugh through their set, that it almost makes it a little bit more charming. For some reason, I didn't have that vibe with Pauly Shore. It just kind of seemed like he either thought that he was funnier than he is, or he kind of forgot his jokes. And he even admitted during one part of his set that he fucked up a joke. And that part wasn't great. And I'm just kind of really not the biggest Pauly Shore fan in the world, to tell you the truth. So it was pretty easy to rank him among some of the bottom-ranked guys. But when I started making this list, he actually cracked the top 10. So putting in Pauly Shore at number 9. Coming in at number 8, and speaking of people that were obviously fucked up, I have Heath Cordes.
Alabama, my mother, she sent me nude pictures of herself on my cell phone. Roll Tide.
I don't know what Heath is on, and I don't want to speculate per se, because I don't know what people are going through. I'm not really a guy that's around drugs, I mean, look at me. I know that's crazy, but, he was sniffling throughout the whole set, and, you read the comments, you go through the subreddit, and people are saying, he had like opiates and coke and things like that, and it's like, man, I really hope Heath is okay, because I really, really like Heath Cordes, and I like his stand-up, and it just seemed like he didn't care a whole lot during this set, but his jokes were funny. Talking about his mom sending him nudes and how he's from Alabama, so that tied well together. And it was a funny concept. And talking about how you don't respond to your mom when she sends you nudes, you report her, and now she's in jail. That's funny. He has these funny jokes, these funny setups, and it's just a matter of like he's got to show that he cares a little bit. And I don't know if he's there yet, unfortunately. So for that reason, I have Heath at number 8, and I hope that he can get more healthy as time goes on. Coming in at number 7, I have Joe Filey.
A lot of girls are going to say no. And that's okay. You just got to get them drunk enough you can hold them down with one arm and cover their mouth with the other. No, that ain't true. I would never rape a girl. I only half raped a girl. Like, I had a conjoined twin, and this bitch had 2 heads. Well, no, these bitches had one body, I guess you would say. It was definitely a best of both worlds. Like, one head was yelling yes, and the other one was saying no, and I was like, what more could I ask for?
There was a part in this set where Sam J said, I believe it was this one, where Sam J said, this show has big subreddit energy. And, that couldn't be more true. The Kill Tony subreddit is just crazy all the time. And this guy just has big subreddit energy himself. I could see a world where Joe Filey should be lower on this list, especially maybe below Heath Cordes or Pauly Shore, but you could at least tell that there was an effort that was made in his set. Like Heath and Pauly, Pauly laughed through his jokes. He messed up one of them. Heath just was kind of lackadaisical through his set. With Joe, at least, they were fucked up jokes, but he went out there and he tried them. Basically just told a bunch of, essay jokes, and they weren't great. I mean, they were kind of fucked up, honestly. He talked about a specific kind of person in this set, and I feel disgusting even talking about it, and talked about how he could, basically have his way with it and throw it in the closet like a sock until mom finds it, which is like the most foul thing you will ever hear in your entire life. He was fucked up, but he owned it. You know what I'm saying? Like he talked about how last time he was on, he was fired from his job at Amazon, and or he was at least like demoted at his job from Amazon, and like this is a set that's gonna get you fired from Amazon, Joe. So you gotta appreciate the determination and the craft to comedy, but this style, I don't know, but if this is what you want to do, and I guess I can't really talk shit, because it was only a couple episodes ago that I talked about Helena, who kind of did stuff that was similar, but a little bit more. I don't know how you make these kind of jokes tasteful, but it was a little bit more tasteful. I don't know how to explain it, but Joe, a guy that I don't think Tony would like to have on again, but I would like to see him again to see what other, more fucked up jokes he could bring on. For me to watch, it's weird to talk about. You're just going to have to go see Joe's set for yourself. Coming in at number 6, we have Uncle Laser.
Statistically, we've all to some degree been sexually assaulted with a stranger during Netflix and chill. You're one of the few.
The long-awaited return of Uncle Laser, and I've seen the comments. A lot of people don't like Uncle Laser. I'm a big fan of this white trash redneck stand-up comedian. I'm a big fan of him, and sticking on task with what we were talking about with Joe. He also joked about SA as well, and talked about how statistically people, at least one person in the room, I believe he said, had been that during a Netflix and chill, and he also talked about how he did crack with a lady during a Netflix and chill situation, and how he wants to watch House of Dragons and not chase a dragon. And then after he was done with his set, Tony mentioned that show was not on Netflix, and that was the most Tony Hinchcliffe thing that I have ever heard in my entire life. He said, that show, not on Netflix. Like, I'm just going to point that out to you. Love the show, love Netflix, he said. Big fan of Netflix, he kept saying. So, wonder when this show's going to be on there. But, I thought that was funny. And he also talked about puking all over Red Band's bathroom during the Madison Square Garden show after being poisoned by Aaron Rodgers, which is such an Uncle Laser story. Like, that's something that could only ever happen to him. He's such a unique individual. And he also got put to the test for the redneck spelling bee. He was also tasked with spelling statistically, and he got it wrong, because of course he did. Uncle Laser, with his probably second grade education, did not get it right, but I do like Uncle Laser. I liked his set from this episode, and hopefully we see him again soon. Big fan. Coming in at number 5, and we are in the top 5, I have Fuzzy.
You guys get that? That's awesome. I got to look up to the Prophet Muhammad. There's no pictures. I don't even know what the fuck this guy looks like. Every picture of Jesus, awesome. Just him at the Last Supper getting fucked up with his 12 best friends. That's relatable.
Fuzzy, he had a good take on religion, and I think a good joke at least on religion. And that's something that Tony said. Religion is a thing that has been done to death in the comedy world and is something that is literally the oldest topic in the world. But when you could bring out a fresh take, especially something that's so off the wall, and you can make it your own and make it funny, then it's a good joke. And that's what Fuzzy did. It's setting it up by saying, Jesus is so cool. Some people even think that he was black. And then, calling the prophet Muhammad more like a fat white girl. Very, very good. Good setups, good, comparisons. And he really just brought it home and was, one of the better bucket pulls of the night. I believe he was either the first or the second of this episode. So I did a really, really good job. Was a big fan of Fuzzy's work in this episode. Coming in at number 4, I have Kane.
I was like, wow, thank God women don't have that feature. Am I right? Like, not for me, like for my uncles and stuff, like they'd be real stinky if that was the case. And I just feel like, like pheromones, that's such a crazy concept. And like if women did have that feature, it just raises the question, like what does a man that hits women smell like? Probably like Axe body spray or something,
He told a joke which was pretty good, about bees and pheromones and how bees have a certain pheromone that they release onto you to show that you are a hitter. And it's good that, girls don't have that. And that was a funny joke. And he talked about how he said, what would that smell like? And he said, probably like Axe body spray, which is, 150% right. Great comparison. And he just oozed confidence, Kane did. I mean, he owned that stage. They were asking him about like his necklace, his ring and stuff, and he just like passed it down the panel to show him. Like, he's a guy that they should bring back, and he should at least, sign up for the show again. And I would be very interested to see what he can bring to the table the next time that he's on, because he has a really good stage presence, and I'd be interested to see what he could do. Coming in at number 3, I have Cam Patterson.
And then when I opened up, it was just more guns. That was... I was like, oh, you just an asshole, brother. When I shoot you, then I'm gonna really kill your ass, dummy. The funny thing was, most of his guns had like silencers on them, and that's terrifying, right? Because he's not an assassin, he's an accountant, you feel what I'm saying?
Cam Patterson told jokes about guns and how it's weird people have silencers on them, and his friend having, even more guns in a first aid kit. When he saw it, he had guns in a first aid kit, and inside the first aid kit was just more guns. Really expanding his stand-up sets, doing more different things, and I really like to see it, and it's making me laugh. And Cam Patterson really turning a corner right now, I think, in his stand-up career. He's becoming more well-rounded, becoming more fun. And not that he wasn't funny before, but just kind of really executing on a lot of different levels in the stand-up game to really kind of master his craft in the game. And then the interview portion, it was even better because he talked about beating his friend in drunk basketball and how they took 8 shots. And he ended up just taking water shots, but his friend took the 8, and he beat him in a game for $5,000. And they asked him, "Did they pay you yet?" And he said that they will pay him in increments. And then that caused Tony to say, "I will give you $500 if you can spell increments." And he could not spell increments in the first edition of Black Spelling Bee on Kill Tony, which was hilarious. Very, very funny stuff. Cam Patterson can own a room. Guy's going to be a star someday. And definitely, I think the regulars right now on Kill Tony are ever changing. So there's going to have to be a time where I remake Ranking the Regulars, and I I would definitely put Cam Patterson higher on the list than I originally had him, because he's doing a great job right now. Coming in at number 2, I have Mackenzie Jewell.
That I like to do, I call it if Predator from the movie Predator was on Chris Hansen's To Catch a Predator. Predator, why did you send that text to that girl? I was homeschooled.
Mackenzie Jewell was hilarious, man. A 22-year-old bucket pull, and his joke of Predator was on To Catch a Predator was funny. And, Greg Fitzsimmons said it was missing a punchline, but I think the punchline was the transition to his next joke where he says, I was homeschooled. That was funny. And he gets invented, and the interview was even more funny, talking about how he's from Houston and, kind of had like a hood edge to him, talking about being from the 4-4. Very funny, and said they asked him what's like the most hood thing about you, and he says he likes to stand on business when he can. He also talked about how his main hobby is scrapbooking, so like just two completely opposite things. And then asking him if he's ever stolen anything, and the only thing that he's ever stolen is a Katniss Everdeen action figure, which is so funny. He was knocking it out of the park in this episode, and is definitely somebody that I would like to see back. Mackenzie Jewell, I believe one of the higher rankings for me since I've started doing this for a bucket pool. I don't believe a bucket pool has ever gotten the top 2 rankings, so very, very good showing for Mackenzie Jewell. Coming in at number 1 in the best set of the night, I have Ari Maddie.
No bigger culture shock for me than the fucking American homeless. Because you have these erratic, fucking, hard to read motherfuckers out there.
Ari Maddie is a superstar. Ari Maddie's going to get that U.S. citizenship, and he is going to be the next big name in stand-up comedy. He did jokes about the homeless issue basically in America, and how that it's completely different in Estonia because of the long winters, and you never see the same homeless people in Estonia. It's like butterflies, they migrate. You get different homeless people because of the long winters. And he talks about a homeless guy that lives outside of his apartment, and how that everybody knows him. Sorry, I don't know why that took me so long to say that. Everybody knows him, and with how crazy everybody is about guns, he's like, just shoot Mike. That was so funny. Ari Maddie has great delivery. He has great body language. Just everything about this guy screams superstar, and I'm very excited to see what he does next, because it's going to be awesome. It's going to be great. Alrighty, guys, that was me ranking every set from Kill Tony number 681. What did you guys think of my ranking? What did you guys think of this episode? Let me know in the comment section down below, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.